Oh, I have
Good morning.
Wait, there you go. There you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
we're recording.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning, Excelers. We miss you. We miss you. We miss you. Welcome to our second installment of To Kill a Mockingbird, brought to you by Ms. Ruiz and Ms. Mitsi. This is our version of, I guess, a Socratic seminar. We were talking about this last week a little bit after our meeting. We thought we just did kind of like a fishbowl / Socratic seminar between the two of us.
P.S. Even when we're not distance learning, I'm using this. So, here, kids, watch this video. Take notes.
Oh, oh yeah. Okay.
That's what my puppy is right here, by the way.
Oh, Rocky's there.
Like you're talking, so he's like, "Hello."
Hi, Rock.
You say hi.
Hi, Rocky. He looks so sad.
He's like, "There's
I wish I
people,
was
but I don't see
listening."
people." All right, chapter 9. Sorry,
Up to Kill a Mockingbird.
I have my
Ruiz,
version.
are you going to show your shirt off?
Oh, here's my shirt. This is from chapter 10. This is Atticus in the movie. Gregory Peck plays Atticus, so that's Atticus and that's Hecate in the movie. That you don't watch until it's over. Don't watch it until you're done reading. So
Yeah, in chapter 10, if some of you who have read ahead or are familiar with the book, chapter 10 is a fun one.
They're all fun.
Yes. All right. We doing this?
I can't deal with you. You have to go away. Yes. I'm ready. Let's go. Chapter 9. All right.
Chapter 9. Okay. We are, I don't know, in my book, I'm on page 74 in this one, but all the kids
starts on 99 in the other book.
Yeah.
So it opens with a fight. It opens with Scout kicking Cecil Jacobs' butt. That's how it opens.
Yes. And up until this point, Scout has remained, Scout, I guess, and Jem both have been pretty sheltered from Atticus's case, and that whole everything that's happening behind the scenes, behind in the adult world, has not necessarily clashed with their world. And they
don't even know about it yet. This is where they know about it.
This is the first time that they are challenged. This is the first time that Scout stands up for herself against Cecil, who opens his big mouth.
So one of the things I always want to point out with this is Scout beats up Cecil Jacobs, and then she has a conversation with Atticus, and she starts with a very powerful question that's, do you defend niggers, Atticus? And that question, or anything that, can you imagine a younger brother or a younger sister or a cousin or someone using that language in front of you? Like my immediate reaction, if my nephews were to say something like that, my eyes would pop out of my head. I would immediately react, that's not how we talk. But Atticus doesn't do that. He very calmly and very casually, but assertively rebukes her and says, of course I do. Don't say nigger, Scout, that's common. So he takes this powerful question. He doesn't overreact or even really react. Right. He just kind of disarms it and takes it apart, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and the way he handles it is quintessential Atticus. Like Ms. Rose said, that he doesn't overreact, but he definitely, his tone is strong, his tone is direct, and he lets Scout know this is not how we talk. And so what I like about him, as always, is his honesty and his transparency with the kids, because the whole idea is that, Atticus he protects the kids, but at the same time, he is completely honest with them and keeps them in the loop as much as possible, and uses these moments as teachable moments. He doesn't want Scout walking around talking that way, because according to him, it's common, meaning that, people who are uneducated, people who are ignorant speak that way, and we are not that, and he chooses to educate his daughter about what it is that he's doing.
And he does so in a way that doesn't make her think that it's, want to kind of say it even more. Right. She also goes into a little bit there about how she's hoping that she can get out of school by pretending to be sick. That was a little bit in there as well. And then we get another question. Scout, they're having a conversation. We get another question, and she asks Atticus, are we going to win it? And she's talking about this case.
Right.
And Atticus very simply and very honestly and authentically says no. No, we're not. Simply because we were licked 100 years before, or simply because we were beat. This case was over 100 years before it started. There's no reason for us not to try to win. And so we have these two powerful questions, one about language and one about this case, where Atticus, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't overreact, but in the same breath, he is honest. He is direct. As Mitzi said, kind of this quintessential Atticus, like dealing with and talking with children as if they were young adults, making it so they can understand it, but not hiding the truth from them at all.
Yeah, and this goes back to that conversation from chapter 5 with Miss Maudie talking about, Atticus is who he is. Atticus is the person that will defend Tom Robinson no matter what, even though he knows that he's going to lose, it's the right thing to do. And, for any kid, especially someone like Scout, who is, she doesn't understand that. She can't wrap her head around doing the right thing for the right reason. She just understands win or lose. And in this case, the fact that Atticus tells her, no, we're not going to win. But how do you explain to a kid the gravity of that? It's
Right.
kind of hard to do that. So I love how the scene ends with Scout just crawling on Atticus's lap. She's as tough as she is, she's still young and she's still vulnerable and she still needs that from her dad. So they have this like really heavy conversation. And I love how it ties into the end of that conversation is her sitting in his lap and just kind of snuggling with her dad. And we don't get a lot of these moments, but when we do, they're so sweet. I just had to point that out because it's my favorite. These are my favorites.
We're moving on to the family part.
Yeah, you want to talk about the structure of the chapter?
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And that leads to this too.
Okay.
So at the end of that little moment, Scout goes back and there's another opportunity to go toe-to-toe with Cecil, and she doesn't. She says, Atticus so rarely asked Jem and me to do something for him. I could take being called a coward. And then she says, I felt extremely noble for having remembered. I remained noble for 3 weeks. Then Christmas came and disaster struck.
I love that. I remained noble for 3 weeks.
I was so good for 3 weeks. Sounds like me talking about exercise for eating well. Anyway, the structure, the way the author does this, Harper Lee does this multiple times. Mm-hmm. We know how it's going to end, and then she goes into the story. So we know that Christmas came and disaster struck. Scout stayed out of a fight until Christmas. So we're going to get this Christmas story, and it's going to end with a fight. Something happens, and there is a fight. This goes back to, again, and I haven't mentioned this in a while, but the first chapter, the very first line is Jem got his arm badly broken at the elbow. And Scout said it started this way, and Jem said it started this way. And the whole story, we know the ending. It ends with Jem and a broken elbow. Yep. We just don't know how. So we know that this chapter, or this incident, this Christmas incident, is going to end with a fight. We just don't know exactly how.
Yeah, Harper Lee, she drops these little bits, these little morsels of these cliffhangers almost, this little bite, and then I love how she lays out the story that comes along with that. It's then Christmas came and disaster struck, and then there's a break in the page, and we get that Christmas story. So she does that. She drops these little morsels of these moments, and the wait and see. This is going to be a good one. How do we feel about Aunt Alexandra?
Oh, she represents tradition in the old-fashioned way.
Yeah,
her in this one, and she's kind of obnoxious a little bit.
She's so out of touch with, I think, yes. She's definitely someone who wants, oh, you're frozen, Ms. Ruiz. Come back to us.
Yes.
Okay, we apparently
just keep going.
Frozen, so we're just
keep going.
Pause again, awkwardly, we freeze. We're putting that dance. So we were talking about Aunt Alexandra and how she is a representation of Old South traditions, and she tries to preserve this family, history, but Scout's not having it, and at all.
And Atticus isn't either. No. Atticus plays along, and then tells Scout, do what you're gonna do.
He appeases her out of respect to his sister, out of love for his sister. But for the most part, Atticus is like, wink, wink. We'll do what she wants while we're here, but we're gonna do our own thing. Yeah.
We also meet Uncle Jack in this piece. Uncle Jack shows up. He's the cool uncle, like the one you want to hang out with at family parties. That's who Uncle Jack is. Scout gets in trouble for swearing here, which is one of the funniest pieces in the story, I think, when she asks Uncle Jack to pass the damn ham at the table.
Yes.
And Atticus is like, no big deal. Like she's just
trying it out.
Swearing,
Yeah.
right? And Uncle Jack is like, nuh-uh. I don't want to hear any of that. I could just hear like Aunt Christina telling her nieces and nephews, no, that is not acceptable.
That's not how we talk.
It's not how we do this. So she gets a little lesson there, and Uncle Jack gets a little taste of parenting.
Yeah, because he's the cool single uncle that what does he talk? He talks about his cat, his girlfriend, and his cat. Remember the female cat that he has?
Yeah, I didn't get that was a girlfriend reference.
Well, it's not girlfriend reference. No. Sorry, it's the only woman in
only female that he can stand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he's just a funny character. So it's a nice balance between Atticus, the siblings, Atticus and Alexandra and Uncle Jack. It's cool, the dynamic, because they each have their own place in the book. And
I didn't really thought about that. You're totally right.
Yeah, I mean, Atticus is who he is, and we know he's obviously the kid's dad. And Alexandra, she represents like this past and this need to preserve, family history and tradition. Then you get Uncle Jack, who is kind of somewhere in the middle. He appreciates and wants to maintain the tradition. Good girls don't, or women don't say bad words. We are always, you should be a lady. But at the same time, he's the fun one, and Atticus isn't, because
tells them stories and brings the cool Christmas presents. Yes. Does all that cool stuff. Yeah. So they get Christmas presents. They get air rifles. Uncle Jack brings them. They are from Atticus. Atticus says, you have to teach him to shoot. And that was kind of all we get. Although Scout wants to bring the air rifles to Christmas at Alexandra's Christmas dinner so she can shoot Francis, their cousin, which is kind of entertaining. One of my favorite lines in this whole book is the description of Francis. Oh, yeah. Talking to Francis gave me the sensation of settling slowly to the bottom of the ocean.
Yes.
The most boring child I ever met. I feel like that in faculty meetings sometimes.
I feel like that in many ways, yes.
But I love that line, like, someone so boring that, talking to them feels like settling slowly to the bottom of the ocean.
Just kind of, you're done. Just, you can't hear anything, everything's muffled, and you're out.
And you're lulled into like, oh my God.
Oh, Francis. So Francis pulls a Cecil Jacobs.
Very good.
He pulls a Cecil Jacobs, and this is the moment that she warned us. Scout warned us about. 3 weeks she was good, and then Christmas came, and Francis decides to challenge Scout, and he decides to say what Cecil said, and I go ahead. I don't know I can't find the quote for this one.
So he goes back and forth, and he calls Atticus a nigger lover, which obviously ruffles Scout's feathers. And then they play this cat and mouse game in the backyard, where Francis hides in one place, and Scout waits for him to come out, and then she kind of jumps on him, and then he gets away, and they go back and forth until eventually the authorities are called because Scout she splits her knuckle to the teeth.
Yes, this time I split my knuckle to the bone on his front teeth.
Yeah.
My left impaired, I sailed in with my right, but not for long. Uncle Jack pinned my arms to my sides and said, stand still. Yeah. So this is, as this visceral, this gut reaction that we have when someone attacks Atticus, we're there with Scout, but at the same time, Atticus's words are echoed in our mind. Don't fight, you don't fight with your fists, but you can't help it, right? This is someone that's attacking her dad. This is family who's attacking family, and she's going to show him. And there's a sense of relief, like when she just busts her. Well, she hurts her hand, but she also hurts him pretty badly too. And of all people, fun Uncle Jack stops.
Oh yeah, Uncle Jack breaks up the fight. He not only gets her, but she's little, right? So you can kind of pick up little kids by their clothing and move them, because they're little. Yeah. And so she picks her, pins her arms at her sides, and then Scout decides, do I run away? Do I stay? Do I run? And Scout goes to run, but she goes too late, and Uncle Jack picks her up and puts her face down in the dirt, so she's stuck there. And at that point in time, Atticus is like, and we're going home. Like, we've done enough here. And Scout sulks and won't talk to anybody because she's mad and she's embarrassed and she's angry.
Yeah, she tells Uncle Jack, I hope you die tomorrow. That's how angry she is.
They go home first. Atticus is like, and we're done.
Yep.
Let's go home. So the whole entourage goes home. Scout's in her bedroom. Uncle Jack comes in. You're right. That was there.
That was before they left, yeah.
Yeah, when she yells, I hate
you. Her mic drop moment, the tantrum moment, like, I hate you. This is
Yeah.
typical kid. And of course she's emotional, and Uncle Jack is not going to take that to heart. But they wait till they get home. And
Yes.
you know, she is definitely sulking and angry. And how dare Uncle Jack not be on her side, you know?
Frozen.
Like, oh, I'm frozen?
How dare Uncle Jack
Oh,
keep
I thought you said
doing
frozen. Sorry.
That's because we were frozen for a second, but continue.
Okay. It says my internet connection is unstable. We better hurry up and finish. Okay. So anyway, Uncle Jack doesn't take her side. This is like the ultimate, you know, I can't believe that you are not on my side, but he has an Atticus moment with her that evening. Do you want to pick that up?
And my favorite is when he comes in and she's angry and she lets him in, but she is so angry. So she goes and stands in the corner, right? Yes. This is how I'm going to show you I'm mad. I'm going to stand in the corner. I'm not going to talk to you. So finally they have a conversation and Scout is like, you need to handle like Atticus always listens to both sides. Listen to both sides, right? So then she proceeds to tell her story. And I love that when she mentions what Francis called Atticus, she says, I don't even know what it means.
But she knows it's bad.
I ain't very sure what it means, but the way Francis said it, I'll tell you one thing for right now, I'm not gonna let anybody talk about Atticus. So, you know, this defense comes out of, I don't even know what that word means, but it sounded bad, so I punched him in the face, and I was extremely provocated, she said.
Yes. And I mean, and she hopes that Uncle Jack sees her side of it, and, you know, it's something that he does, because late after this conversation, do you want to say anything else about that conversation?
You're good. Keep going.
Yeah, after that, he leaves the room and has this conversation with Atticus. And this is the moment that we go back to the idea of secrets, where the kids' world and the adult world up until this point hasn't really clashed. And this is the moment where Scout listens in on their conversation, and she gets a little bit of perspective. She sees that Atticus he's not happy, but Jack is seeing her side of it, but doesn't want to admit to her that, you know, it's okay to hit people. He doesn't want to teach her that lesson. Absolutely.
I also love too that this is another example of Atticus, you know, Uncle Jack says, you know, she asked what a whore lady was, and I explained to her about Lord Melbourne or something, and Atticus says, you know, Jack, like, children are children, but they can spot an invasion. Be honest with them. Don't make a big deal out of it. And so we see Atticus discussing his philosophy when it comes to children, but we already saw his action of that. When Scout asked about, do you defend those people? Like, he's already shown us in his action, and his words match. Going back to Miss Maudie, talking about, you know, Atticus is the same, you know, inside his house as he is on the street. This idea that this is his philosophy with children, and it's not just a philosophy, it's practice. And we have seen it in action, and we will continue to see this again.
And this is like,
sorry, one more thing. That idea of being honest and direct, and not making a big deal of it, but being honest.
Yeah, and this is so true of Atticus when it comes to who he is, you know, and thinking about, like, with kids, you know, in general, not just in Mockingbird, but generally speaking, you know, it's so important to be transparent when you're dealing with kids. That's why we, you know, as high school teachers, yes, you're kids, but at the same time, we see you as people. And I think, if anything, it's best to always be honest with you. And, you know, lessons are learned from honesty, and lessons are learned from kind of harsh realities. And Atticus isn't afraid to face those realities sometimes, and he isn't afraid to tell it like it is and as it should be. So I think that for Uncle Jack, who is the cool uncle, yes, he's a cool uncle, but he's not a dad, and he doesn't have to deal with this on a daily basis. And so it's a good lesson for Uncle Jack too. It's definitely, he learned a lot from that day.
All the while, Scout is listening,
yes,
right at the door. And we also have, I'm moving to this next part, Mitzi.
Yeah.
And we also get our first peek at this trial. And all we know is it couldn't be worse, Jack. The only thing we've got is a black man's word against the Ewells. We know Tom Robinson is a black man, and we know the Ewells from Burris, who we met in the earlier chapter, the kid with the cooties and the lice and the dirty kid that only comes to school the first day, and that's it. So that's all we know. We know it's Tom Robinson, a black man, against the word of the Ewells, nothing else. We know that Atticus had said, we're going to lose. We know here that Atticus says, I intend to jar the jury a bit, but I think we'll have a reasonable chance on appeal. So we know that there is a racial trial coming up. We know that the kids are going to have to endure a lot of criticism and a lot of taunting. Atticus has asked them not to fight, but we see this trial through Atticus's eyes for the first time, and he is explaining that to Jack all the while Scout is listening, so that Scout can see what's coming through Atticus's eyes as well. My dog is going to bark in just a second. Continue.
Oh, I'll just wait for Rocky.
Just pulled up, so we're going to have a barking dog.
Yeah, no, I think you said it just great. I think at this point it leads into kind of the nitty gritty of, you know, prepping for the trial and what's to come and the backlash of that. It's definitely, you know, in thinking about the Yules versus Tom Robinson, the hierarchy of those two groups, those two people, the family of the Yules and then Tom Robinson, and who they are in Macomb County and their place in the county. Tom Robinson unfortunately doesn't have a chance, and the Yules, who regardless of who they are, because they are white, will win, and Atticus knows that.
Privilege and have some privilege that comes along with that for sure. Yep. I also, there's other two little pieces. I like the he references Macomb's usual disease. Yes. I love that line, referring to racism and the prejudice that comes along with where they live and the people that they live around and live with, and that culture. He also references, I love that he wants her to hear this, and he wants her to hear it for two reasons. First of all, he gives her a compliment, and he says, I know that she tries. Yes. And he wants her to hear that compliment so that she's getting that acknowledgement that he knows. You know, he says, I know that she tries. And then he also challenges that, but she's going to have to keep her head because it's going to get worse. So he kind of does both things. He gives her that compliment. You know, an adult talking to another adult complimenting their child is a big compliment. So she hears that, and at the same time, she gets this little attagirl, like, come on, like, it's going to get worse. And I need you to continue to step this up, even when you don't want to.
Even when you don't want to. It's a tough one. It's definitely, it's hard. And it's sweet because, yeah, she does kind of, it makes her feel good, but at the same time, you know, she does have to understand that this is not playtime anymore. This isn't the Boo Radley make-believe games. This is real, and this is serious. So there's a lot of action in my backyard.
I think that finishes up chapter 9. Yeah. Chapter 10 and 11 are the end of the first part. Both are very single incident chapters. So as you read, pay attention to that single incident. We will do another one for chapter 11. I just said that. I made that real. So we're going to do another one for chapter 11. All right? Rockstar.
All right. Good to see you guys.